I hope you enjoyed your lunch. We're going to be starting our afternoon session with a brief sponsor highlight from Amanda Stiles. Amanda is the Director of Technical Operations at Google Lunar XPRIZE. Amanda?
Okay. Thank you everyone for coming. Good afternoon. And today I am going to give you an update on the Google Lunar XPRIZE. I actually wear two hats at the XPRIZE Foundation. And is there a clicker for the slides? Sorry. I actually wear two hats at the XPRIZE Foundation. I am the Director for XPRIZE competitions in Space and New Frontiers. I'm actually not going to talk about that part of my job too much today. It's basically working on developing our new space prizes at the Foundation. But if you have interest in that, please come talk to me after the presentation. I'd be happy to chat with you. My other job is the Director of Technical Operations for the Google Lunar XPRIZE. So today I will be telling you about the status of the competition and also talking to you more about the history of the prize. It's been going for 10 years, so go over some of the milestones that we've covered over the past 10 years and some of the other initiatives that we have going on in the background at the Google Lunar XPRIZE. So in case anyone is not aware of what the Google Lunar XPRIZE is, it's $30 million prize purse. It's the largest incentivized prize competition ever, and it's for the first privately funded team, meaning less than 10% government funded, to land on the moon, move 500 meters, and then send back what we call mooncasts, which are HD video and photo packages. The prize purse is split out at $20 million for the grand prize winner, first team to do this, $5 million for second place, and then there is a series of bonus prizes they can go after for a total of $5 million. A lot of people ask us why Google funded this prize in the first place, and there's two key objectives with the Google Lunar XPRIZE. The first is to create this new lunar economy of privately funded robots that are low cost and to really open up the lunar frontier for more people to go and send experiments or send payloads to the moon. The second point was, and this is something that Google really believes in and thinks is important, is to use this prize for outreach to really inspire people globally to pursue space careers. Google often was fond of saying that they wanted this to be a dinner table conversation around the world. We don't often emphasize this second point very often at space conferences, but it's something that I think can't really be overstated. There's many effects of running a prize that they're not just technical benefits. There's a lot of other things that come out of running a prize inspiration-wise. There's a lot of people who are part of teams that don't necessarily win the prize, but it affects their career. There's a lot of education initiatives, and I actually do want to talk about a couple of those education initiatives that we've had running with the prize for the last few years. So the first one we have is called Moonbots, and this is an annual competition for students around the globe to compete for what we call the mini Google Lunar XPRIZE with Lego. Essentially, it's been going for years. Every summer, we have teams from around the world who send in videos in response to something that we put out from the XPRIZE Foundation, and then we down select into a group of finalist teams, and our judges will evaluate these teams based on whatever whatever the goal was for the year that we've set up. One of my favorite Moonbots competitions was actually that photo at the top there. That was the game board for the year. It was finding the lunar water in the lunar craters. And that Moonbot, the Mindstorms robot that's down below, was one of our winners for that year. We give away some really cool prizes for this. The teams, the ground prize winners, have gone to LEGO headquarters in Denmark and to the Pisces Center in Hawaii, and one year we sent them to a team summit in Japan so that they can meet the actual Google Lunar XPRIZE teams. So we've had 5,000 youth involved in this, and 45% girls, which is great, and over 50 countries have participated in this over the years. One of our other initiatives that we had was a full dome show that plays in planetariums around the world. This was brought out in 2013. It's still running in over 900 planetariums in 75 different countries and 25 different languages. Highlights what the teams are doing and is educational for learning about why we're going back to the moon. And then we also had a series that was produced by J.J. Abrams that highlighted, it was a mini-series that highlighted all of the teams and the efforts they were making towards winning this prize. It's really interesting to watch because it really shows the diversity of the prize, all the different teams that are involved, why they were inspired to be a part of this competition, and even some of the sacrifices they have to make as they try to win this prize. This was launched last year at South by Southwest, but it's up on YouTube if anybody's interested in watching it. I highly recommend. Okay, so getting into the Google Lunar XPRIZE itself. So I'm going to start with a history of the Google Lunar XPRIZE and where we've been and why it's gone on for 10 years, and then we'll talk about where we're at currently and where we're going. So we have, as I mentioned, been going for 10 years now. This prize was launched in September 2007, and I am going to break this down into 3 different phases, starting with our first phase, which was the recruitment stage. So 2007, we announced GLXP. The first team was registered by the end of that year. It was Odyssey Moon, and the head of that team was Bob Richards, who's now the head of Moon Express, is one of our finalist teams. And then several months later, we announced our first 10 teams that were in the competition. In November 2009, there was an announcement. There was significant water ice that was found to be on the moon. So this was great for a potential market for the Google Lunar XPRIZE teams. And then December 2010 was the end of our team registration timeframe, and in February 2011, we announced that we had 29 registered teams from 16 different countries. We were pretty happy with that. It's worth noting at the time, XPRIZE was also running the Lunar Lander Challenge concurrently. So I also want to mention there were 3 things that happened here which were not foreseen in 2007 that really played into the length of this competition, I think. So first of all, we had the global financial crisis happened in 2008, and that was a challenge for teams in that the investment dollars were a little harder to get after that happened. The second thing was the Falcon 1 was retired in 2009. So when this competition was launched, there was a preferred partnership with SpaceX, and SpaceX was offering a discount to Google Lunar XPRIZE teams that would fly on its Falcon 1 rocket. This was seen as like a really good opportunity for the Google Lunar XPRIZE teams because it was a cheaper rocket and they could send small spacecraft to the moon using the Falcon 1. When it was retired, it was a little bit unexpected, and I think a number of the teams actually did go to SpaceX and try to convince them to change their mind, and they did not, obviously. And so then they were faced with the challenge of figuring out how to afford a much more expensive launch vehicle. So a lot of them started having to explore ride sharing and other things like that. And then when the Constellation Moon program was canceled in 2010, this was seen as something that was going to be complementary to the Google Lunar XPRIZE in the form of robotic precursor missions or exploration missions that could be sent out to help out with this moon program. So when that was canceled, that had the teams recalibrating for other market opportunities they could pursue. So that brings us into our next phase. In May of 2012, I call this the ramp-up phase. In May of 2012, the lunar heritage guidelines for exploring lunar heritage sites were released by NASA, and this was directly because of the Google Lunar XPRIZE and because one of our bonus prizes was to go and explore heritage sites. And then in response to some of the issues that I mentioned on the last slide, XPRIZE realized that we needed to do something in the meantime, in the interim, to help these teams out and to also demonstrate that they were making technical steps forward. So to that end, in 2013, XPRIZE designated a team of 9 judges, start of our judging panel, which I'll talk about in just a minute. And then we launched the milestone prizes. They were terrestrial milestone prizes. So these, I'll talk a little bit more about those just because they were important. These were set out so that we could reward teams for achieving, making technical progress rather. And then we were trying to incentivize the teams to retire some of their technical risks more quickly. And it was a good way for XPRIZE to kind of benchmark where the teams were, and then it was also a way for these teams to get infused with some extra cash when they needed it. The 3 technical categories that we ran these milestone prizes in were landing, mobility, and imaging. And we had 3 winners in each category. Every winner in the landing category got $1 million. Mobility was $500,000 each, and imaging was $250,000 each. The teams 5 teams total took home prize winnings from that. It was Astrobotic, Team Indus, Hakuto, Moon Express, and the Part-Time Scientists. Our judging panel, and this is the judging panel that we activated in 2013, and they're still active with the Google Lunar XPRIZE now. It's a really great group, international team of 9 people who are specialists in a variety of systems, including launch, mission planning, robotics, spacecraft subsystems. So as a team, they are the people who interpret the rules to the teams. Sometimes teams have constraints or they have questions about the rules, and they are the independent panel that provides the interpretation and how they expect to judge the teams based on what the rules say. And then they verify that the teams have actually completed the objectives set out in those guidelines. And then they will monitor the teams as they are preparing for their upcoming missions, and they'll observe the actual missions from a mission control center when a team actually does launch. All right, so heading back into our timeline here. So we awarded the milestone prizes in January of 2015, and then the stars that are on the timeline there, those indicate points where we extended the competition. So the original deadline of the competition was in 2014. And we knew that wasn't going to be realistic, so the competition was extended out to 2015, and then again to the end of 2016 with the contingency that if a team could provide a verifiable launch contract to the XPRIZE Foundation by the end of 2015, it would get extended to the end of this year. So, to that end, in October of 2015, SpaceIL was our first team to submit a verified launch contract to the XPRIZE Foundation, and therefore extended the competition out to the end of this year officially. January 2016, we were down to 16 teams in the competition, and by the end of last year, the teams had to submit a verified launch contract to the XPRIZE Foundation, along with proof they put down a significant non-refundable deposit on their launch in order to stay in the competition for 2017. So that brings us to now, which is the final phase of the competition, the last year. We have 5 teams remaining: SpaceIL, Moon Express, Team Indus, Hakuto, and Synergy Moon. And a breakdown of what we're doing in this final year. So in January, we released our final rule set that oversees the final year of the competition. And in March, we reactivated our judging panel so they could start working with the teams again on their final year of milestones. Towards the end of Q2, that's where we're at now, we are reviewing draft mission plans from the teams, and their final mission plans are due in August. So they'll submit their mission plans. This is required by the rules. We have to accept their mission plans. We'll be going through that process in September with our judges. And once those are accepted, then in the background, the Google Lunar XPRIZE judges will be traveling to sites to do a number of verification activities with the teams. And the final deadline is December 31st of this year. These judging verifications that I just mentioned, there's the mission plan review, and then there's also verifying the teams are actually capable of moving on the lunar surface, verifying they can actually send back HD video and photos, and then they verify that that the team has actually integrated a spacecraft that is capable of going to the moon and soft landing on the moon. So you can't just send something and crash land it there and hope to win some kind of money for that. Like, you have to have a spacecraft that actually is capable of doing these things. Post-launch, there's a lot of verifications that go on, and these are all activities the judges will be actively involved with. I won't point all of them out here, but. So the 5 competitors that are left in this competition. So Moon Express, Synergy Moon, Space IL, Team Indus, and Hakuto, which is ride sharing with Indus. Just kind of briefly about each of these teams. Moon Express is based in the United States. They won the $1 million landing terrestrial milestone prize, and they're going to be sending the MX-1E, their micro lander, on Rocket Lab's Electron. They've also leased out a launch complex out in Cape Canaveral, and they're actively building up their production and flight test facilities, not just for the Google Lunar XPRIZE, but for their ongoing business that will continue on afterwards. And there's a photo there from the milestone prize where they did their tethered tests. Synergy Moon is another team based in the United States. Their launch provider, Interorbital Systems, is actually a part of the team itself, and they've been testing out their common propulsion module out in the Mojave Desert. They use an upgraded version of this same rocket. They'll call it the Neptune 8, which is basically 8 of those common propulsion modules together. And the rover is called Tesla, and they're planning to use airbag technology for landing it. Space IL is the Israeli team. They have developed a hopper vehicle. They have a launch contract with Spaceflight Industries for a rideshare on SpaceX's Falcon 9. And one interesting thing about this team is that they've stated if they do win the prize purse, they plan to donate the entire winnings to STEM education in Israel. Team Indus, the team based out in India, they're operated by a company called Axiom Research Labs. They also won the $1 million landing milestone prize, and they have a launch contract with a company called Antrix, which is a commercial arm of ISRO, and they're planning to use the PSLV. There's a lot of national pride behind this team, which is really great to see. They are in the news all the time out in India. And they are allowing Team Hakuto to ride on their lander. So this is the rideshare team. Hakuto is operated by a company called iSpace. They won the $500,000 mobility terrestrial milestone prize, and they're specifically specializing in rover technology. They have over 20 partners and sponsors, including Suzuki, and they're quite famous in Japan. Again, a lot of national pride with this team. There's stories that if one of the team members is walking down the street with a shirt on, they get mobbed by fans. So yeah, Japan loves them. All right, so down to the $20 million questions, and these are the questions that we get at XPRIZE Foundation all the time. So I just wanted to kind of address them in the presentation. You guys are welcome to ask me more questions later if you'd like. But so will any of these teams actually meet this prize deadline by the end of the year? So we call it a grand challenge for a reason. It's a hard thing to do. Every single team is facing their own unique challenges in actually meeting this prize. And the final stretch of any prize really is kind of riddled with obstacles. it's an aggressive timeline, and it's something that teams have to work really hard to meet. But I would say all these teams are very innovative, and they're also very tenacious, and it is definitely not out of the question that one of these teams could make it by the deadline. And the other question, what happens if the teams can't make the deadline? So the moon missions have a lot of risk to them, and obviously there's the aggressive timeline even getting to launch, but then once you actually launch, there's all kinds of things, all kinds of risks as you actually try to soft land on the moon and then move 500 meters. So there is definitely a chance that this prize could expire without a winner. And I think the question people usually are asking here is, are we extending the prize again? And the answer to that is the Google Lunar XPRIZE will end at the deadline, and it will end as it is. And if we do something else, it'll be either, we're looking at like a range of things that could go from changing the prize around to just completely ending it and doing something different. But if we do have those conversations, it's not going to be until much later in the year. We don't really feel like that's necessary at this point. So I guess I just wanted to finish up with this slide again. So this prize is binary. Either someone wins or they don't. But I would say that even if this prize doesn't end up being claimed by the deadline, I think it's worth considering that like what this prize has actually achieved in the 10 years that it's been running. And I was thinking about this a lot recently. I ran into one of our former teams, the part-time scientists. They're building a lander and a rover out in Germany, and they have a sponsor, Audi, and they're still pursuing this. And I asked them, so do you think if the Google Lunar XPRIZE wasn't ever brought forward, would have you just started this company anyway? And they're like, no, absolutely not. And so I think it's worth considering that there's not one, but multiple teams and companies that now exist that are both in and out of the competition that are very close to meeting these goals that Google Lunar XPRIZE has set out. And this was the objective of the prize. It was not to award money to one team that goes and does something. It was not meant to be viewed as a stunt. It was meant to grow a new part of the lunar economy. And I really feel like the momentum that has been created by the Google Lunar XPRIZE is really started kickstarting some of these commercial lunar activities. It's fascinating to see what these companies are doing, and I can't wait to see some of these innovative spacecraft soft land on the moon. So with that, thank you, and I'd be happy to take questions.
Two quick questions so the first, with the two rovers on the same lander, did they already, I guess, work out who gets to touch the lunar surface first?
Yeah, there's agreements between the teams where they determine what their plan is. And I don't even know all the details of those contracts, but they definitely have legal agreements where they're sorting out between the two of them how they're actually going to split this up.
Okay, and then just the other one really quickly is, could you just comment on, I guess, moving the deadline back 3 times? Do you think that the teams, at first, did they think that maybe the deadline could move back? And is it kind of, they know it's sort of a soft deadline because it moves back some, and does that discourage them from really, getting the job done by the set deadline?
Sorry, your question was moving the extension deadline? I couldn't quite hear.
Sorry, just with the deadline getting kind of pushed back several times, could you, I guess, just comment on how you think that affected the team's ability to claim the prize?
Sure. Yeah, I think from XPRIZE's perspective, based on those factors that I had talked about that kind of played into the timeline of the prize, it was very clear to us that these teams needed more time, and we could still move the deadline and still have it be an aggressive goal. And so that's what they ended up doing. And a lot of times, the issues weren't necessarily technical, it was financial as well. So we kind of looked at the big picture and tried to gauge where these teams actually were. And I think there was a number of recalibrations over the years, but yeah.
What happened to the teams that were going to get rides with Astrobotic? Did they withdraw from the prize when Astrobotic did, or are they still in some other capacity?
I think the question was for teams that were going on rides with Astrobotic. So Hakuto was actually one of those teams, and they just decided to go with a different team instead once Astrobotic announced that they were going to be working to a longer timeline. So I think there's still discussions that happen if other companies are also working to longer timelines, then they're still cooperating with Astrobotic. But Astrobotic is another one of those viable teams that's outside of the competition that's still working towards the end goal of getting to the moon. So. All right, that's it. All right, thank you.